Okay, and then I will, beautiful, righto. So we are now going live, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the April Education Night. I'm Michael Forbes, is that better? And tonight we have an education night, or a presentation from New South Wales Department of Fair Trading New South Wales, and we've got Glenn Toole, who's one of their senior investigators. So I guess this, coming from our February education night where we talked about gas and appliances and how they fail. So we're sort of coming from that as well to look at, okay, what happens when an electrical device fails or a gas appliance fails? What happens to that appliance or that device? Who looks after these things after fire investigators go into these scenes, identify a source, and then sort of pass that on to fair trading? Fire rescue, we do that. We certainly identify and then pass it on. What do they do about that in trying to make sort of community safety? So with no further ado, Glenn Toole from Fair Trading. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you. So Glenn Toole, New South Wales Fair Trading. I'm a senior investigator. So I am unfortunately not a gas expert. I'm mostly in electrical. However, I'm part of the electrical and gas and electrical unit. So the gas guys sit across that partition from me. My day-to-day job is electrical, approvals, standards, committees, recalls, all those types of things. So yes, New South Wales Fair Trading, I'm not sure what department I work for anymore because it's just changed. But basically, like I say, my intent here is to tell everybody here what we do. I know you guys have a very different job to what we do. You guys are over here, we're kind of over here. So the way electrical and gas regulation, safety regulation works, although we are Fair Trading, a consumer protection organisation, our unit, Fair Trading is very diverse. Our unit is purely safety, gas and electrical safety. So, in other words, the toaster doesn't work, I don't care. You know, lights don't work, I don't care. As long as it doesn't shock someone, catch fire, and so on. So in Australia, how it works in Australia is, in New South Wales, of course, everything needs to be compliant with the relevant electrical safety standard. So right at the front, we have standards, which everything needs to be compliant to. If it's an electrical article or gas article, it needs to be compliant to its relevant standard. We sit on the committees, we help set those standards. So we get feedback from consumers, lots of people, and feed it back to the standards. The next step in the line is, of course, the regulation thereof. So we also, the regulators, go out to shops, make sure things are compliant, and yes, very good. Beautiful. So make sure that they're compliant, and then of course we get feedback from, unfortunately, the third step, which is a lot of you guys. And someone, if they complain to us, it's caught fire or shocked them, it feeds back in again. So we're pretty diverse. We do approval of electrical articles before they're sold. So the high-risk electrical articles, they all need to be approved before sale. We sit on the committees, we do recalls. I'm also a recall officer. We do inspections, which means shop inspections, investigations, prosecutions. We don't do a lot of prosecutions. We try to be proactive and stop stuff from happening rather than prosecute people. We authorise the independent certifiers who also do the approvals. And the main act that we have is, when we keep you safe, is the Gas and Electricity Consumer Safety Act. So most of what we do is, of course, in electrical articles, in gas articles, rather than the electrical installation. Okay? And of course, right down the bottom, we do Australian consumer law. We're authorised under Australian consumer law, but it's no good for electrical and gas safety. So these acts and those standards give us the power that we need to do to stop things from happening. These are just legalistic determinations, okay? So we only regulate 240 volt. Anything that's extra low voltage, we don't regulate. Anything that's 1,000 volts or above, we also don't regulate, okay? So if it's mains voltage, we can regulate it, very heavily regulated, but we don't do batteries. So we don't do batteries. However, the new Act, you can see it's the 2017 Act, gives us the power to retrospectively control batteries. But we need to have reason, as in we need to have fires and such. Every other electrical article, 240 volt, is inherently regulated, but batteries are not.
So that's every type of battery?
We actually have to gazette a battery article. So hoverboards.
Yes.
So when hoverboards came about, we were a bit stuck. We tried to do it under consumer law, and consumer law, like I say, is not real good for safety. It's just really kludgy. Please, sir, can you please recall it? Yeah, all right. But under the Gas Act, we're almost dictatorial, right? We just smash it. You will do this. Bam. So because of that, we brought in the facility to two-step process. One, we gazette a battery type of article, and two, we can regulate it. So at the moment, there's nothing in that first category yet. So hoverboards and such, we're still waiting for the next one to come along, but we're seriously considering the Tesla power walls and all these other sorts of things out there, right? However, before we gazette that they're required to meet a standard, there needs to be a proper standard for them to meet. So the Tesla power walls, all these sorts of things out there, it's still up in the air, right? We've got a good standard for the batteries, but the product, no, and the installation, not really. Yeah, someone over there has got.
So how far off do you think that is?
So how far? So the committee, I'm not on that committee, I'm an observer on the committee, EL42, so it's all these codes. So piece of string, so the last time they had a crack at it, I've never seen anything like it. They had 3,000 comments and complaints. It literally got onto the news, never seen anything like it because of the way they did it. They dragged all the nominated organisations back, you need to fix it, and then there's a new draft out. You can go for comment now, I believe, right? 5139 in the associated.
It actually closed yesterday.
Closed yesterday, there you go.
I sit on the stand. Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Right, man.
Yeah, so it's a mess. We sit here to regulate them, okay? And so when these things are called up by law, we can regulate them. Standards Australia just publish voluntary standards, we're the ones who regulate it, but we have to call them up by law. Okay, we regulate at time of sale, so we don't have to wait for something to happen. We go at time of sale. So we have very good powers of entry, I can go through later. We walk into stores, that's a problem, and take it off sale. Okay, that's the best time to do it. At time of sale, products, declared articles must be pre-approved, they must be marked with approval mark, and they must be compliant for everything. These are the things we call high risk. Everything that's on this list must be approved before sale. So if you get an issue with a product, right, we'll go, well, the next step we'll say, is it on this list? And we'll say, where's the approval for it? And if it's approved, it'll have a test report. And the first thing we do is, of course, is check what's on the test report to what was sold. And I tell you, most of the time that we have, the issue is that wasn't sold as approved. That's why we have an approval system. That's why it's a breach not to sell an approved article. So everything that's not on that list still needs to be compliant to its relevant safety standard. So the relevant safety standard is set by Standards Australia, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of electrical safety standards, okay? So we don't require pre-approval, but the fact is it's a little bit reactive, I know, but traders, we can take prosecution action against someone if they sell anything that's not compliant to its relevant safety standard. Okay, been rewritten now, it's just been rewritten. So I left it in there because the changes from the old Act to the new Act, we're merging gas and electricity. So our gas was actually completely deficient. They couldn't write a penalty infringement notice, they had no powers of entry, they couldn't do anything. We didn't own the regulation. So now they've zipped it in electrical and gas can now start to take off. We've got lots of power under the Gas Act because it's now the Electricity Consumer Safety Act. And of course, we're including battery powered devices as a reactive measure. So we also need, of course, to keep an eye on things out there, and you guys can help, what things are causing us troubles in terms of batteries. We prefer to work at things coming over the horizon rather than reactive. I would like to have the next hoverboard gazetted and controlled rather than react. But that's the common approval mark. Have you guys all seen this? Yeah. So it's what we're all heading to. It means very little because it used to have an approval number down the bottom, but when they basically took it off. So if you see that, then theoretically it's approved.
Do you see many products without that?
Yes. So if it doesn't have this, we can accept things with a certificate number on it. Okay, so if it's got the certificate number on it instead of that, we can still accept it.
So if we see something that has not got that, it could still be.
It could still be approved.
Approved.
It's still the old school.
Okay.
Okay. But this is more and more and more what you need to see on your electrical products, on your 240 volt electrical products. And it's actually also the telecom mark, the old ATIC, and it's the old CTIC, and electrical safety. It's all merged into this one. But everything will have it, even the stuff that's not properly done. Okay, this is mostly for traders rather than you guys at the time of sale. Another thing, of course, we're very conscious of is that the safety standards are only the bulk's minimum standards. So there's a major recall on, you may have heard, the Samsung washing machines. They were completely compliant to the relevant safety standard. So, yeah, so the fact is that they had a fault that wasn't easily captured by the standard, and it still hasn't been changed because how do we change it? So it's simply by the fact of being compliant to relevant safety standard doesn't mean it's safe to sell. So we basically didn't take them under non-compliant. We just said there's a problem, we'll recall it.
I was going to ask this later, Glenn, but I mean, do you want to just go through the whole Samsung, how it all came about? Because I don't know if everyone knows about it, but it was such a huge issue for you, for fire rescue, for RFS, I'd imagine as well.
How about I will?
Oh, okay, yep.
I will. There's a photo up there of a Samsung machine. When I get to that, I'm sure it'll spark discussion. And it was actually very useful about how we do our processes, how you do your processes, and how it all works together. So, the recall is the reactive. We prefer to work over here, prevent unsafe things from occurring. I tell you what, it works pretty well. The recall is the thing that we do when it all falls over. So, recall triggers, shock, fire, they're the two main things. Shock, you're dead, fire, and you're dead. Mechanical, thermal, anything else that causes harm, we can actually undertake a recall, okay, because it's actually unsafe. We don't need actual incidents to undertake a recall. The director just needs to form a view that it's unsafe, and he can serve a recall notice. But we need a theme. We need basically to build up a case to say that it's. So we like incidents, and we like examination of the articles, and we also like examinations of the articles as sold.
So just on that, again, with you get a device, just a one-off, you wouldn't look at a recall, you're looking at 2, 3 or 4 incidents of the same model, same make, etc.
Correct, Amanda.
Yeah.
So basically we need to have a reasonable person say that this device is unsafe. And so we get so many incidents out there as a single one-off. Okay, and if it's a one-off, then we watch it, we do an incident report, we release it to all the other regulators, and we say, let's watch this article. We get another one, we go through and have a look. You know what, we've got 2, we've got a potential recall trigger. Now, maybe we get 1, examine it, that's unsafe, or even 0, but yes, we need some sort of pattern or theme occurring to form a view that it's unsafe.
And when you say you speak to the other regulators, is the best site to check these things the recalls website, which is recalls.gov.au?
So the OCCC, bless their cotton socks, are not technical regulators. So they have to regulate everything from baby dummies to car brakes and anything else. So anything that technical, gas, electrical technical, their eyes roll back and they just don't know what to do. So the recall website is a good idea for when it's actually under recall, but it's not a good website if we need to do a recall. So all the electrical safety regulators, we share this information and we form a view ourselves. Okay. So we're all members of, we all talk to the other electrical safety regulators. We do incident reports, it's internal, so we don't necessarily share all the shocking toasters and whatever to you guys, but it comes from you guys to us, then we type out a report, we do an investigation, distribute it around with the photographs, the model numbers and everything else. Okay, so that's when we're looking for the pattern. Just something when, if something catches fire in West Australia and in Sydney, basically that's obviously 2 incidents, not 1, because it's basically Australia-wide. We are finding more and more that the cause of the recalls is not the design of the product or even the reliability, it's the manufacturing tolerances. So the design's fine, it wears fine, but every 10th one they've over-tightened it, they're under-tightened it, they put it in the wrong place, and it just goes. So the main issue that we have, obviously, for electrical and gas regulation is it's a type test certification system. So you test the model, and then everything else of the same model is allowed through. But of course, when there's no quality control, it goes all over the shop. Okay, so that's how most recalls occur these days. It's quality control, and our Act doesn't capture it. The Act doesn't try to do it. I'm trying to convince our policy people and our higher ups that we need to change our Act to be more up here, more proactive. But the fact is, manufacturing inconsistencies, quality control is the major problem. And it means that, unfortunately, when you guys tell us there's an incident with this product, we'll go take one off the shelves. Well, this one's fine. This one over here is the problem. Every 10th one. The one's done on Friday morning or whatever. That's just a graph. Yes, so basically it's mostly, if you statistically graph them, it's half of it. That's grown, the red sector's grown. It's quality control. Right, so major electrical recalls. So I picked these main recalls for a couple of reasons. They're the three most expensive electrical safety recalls in Australian history, I believe. I don't think anything comes close to them. So Infinity Cable, you may have heard about them. Samsung washing machines and Eaton Quick Legs. You may not have heard of the last one. It is another $100 million recall, but because it is mostly commercial, it's being handled commercially. Samsung is Samsung. I'll get to it in a minute. And Infinity Cable is, of course, if you've heard of Infinity Cable, who's heard of it? Yeah, okay, might be a couple. Yeah. Okay, so Infinity Cable is, of course, a cable importer, minor guy here in Sydney, decided to import a whole lot of cables, and of course they didn't know what they were selling. And so their competitors brought to our attention the fact that they're non-compliant. I grabbed some, tested it as non-compliant. So we recalled it. They immediately went out of business, and so under the Act, we served notices on the list of 25 people in New South Wales, okay? It's just another debacle, okay? So it's another thing where we need to prevent things from being sold rather than ongoing.
How much of that cable was actually bought in, like in meters or?
Masters, I think they're selling it.
Yeah, mine at 10 was big chain selling it.
Yeah.
It's Masters.
We don't know. So it's across Australia, it's not isolated to anyone. And a spark, you can put it in the back of his car and drive anywhere, so it's...
Containers worth?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like 1,000 kilometres or something.
Yeah.
Thousands of kilometres.
Jeez.
Yeah. So not a trivial amount.
And was it made in China or something?
Yeah, it's all made in China. And now there's nothing wrong with it, right? So it doesn't matter.
Was it about 5 years or something? No, 10 years. No, it just in certain circumstances going to fail, maybe.
Yeah.
The 10th one.
So
No, it's not that bad. It's not as bad, but it doesn't apply the standard. It's still not as bad as... It's not like it's all just going to fail.
Again, we go back to quality control, and
Yeah.
that's what the issue was with that.
Yeah, and so every time, here's the funny thing about Infinity Cables. So every time when I was doing my investigation, so by the way, the other thing that is common about these three things is they're all mine. Okay. So they're all mine. For some reason I was a dumb buddy, right, who got all these three things. So Infinity Cable, of course, every time I asked them for a compliant test report, they go off and test it. Guess what? It complied. Every time I seized it from here, guess what? It didn't comply. And so the Australian entity didn't know what the heck they were doing. They were just getting whatever from overseas. Okay. So it's unfortunate that these days there's less and less, as you know, manufacturing occurring on shore, so there's less and less technical expertise. And so what they do, everything from cables to lighting, they import brown boxes and they sell brown boxes, and you ask them what's inside the box and they look at you stupid. So when I gave this sort of talk to the lighting council people, what do you mean you need to open up the product and look inside? Yes, you need to check it against the test reports. And so the technical expertise in Australia is circling the drain really badly. And so as regulators, we're struggling, I guess, with technical understanding, the local people. So that really bit Infinity Cable. We tried to regulate it, we didn't take it to Parramatta Local Court, we took them to the Supreme Court. We're very disappointed with the outcome, but that's what we can do, okay? It's still going on, and it's a mess. Any questions on Infinity? So Infinity Cable is, as you say, the thermostabilizers on the cable will degrade over time and become brittle, okay? So it's a shock hazard. I don't know who first thought it was a fire hazard. I can't see any issue with the fire. It's basically someone crawling around the roof space, they put the hand on it, it breaks away and it shocks them. Okay, so for you guys it's less of an interest because it's not necessarily a fire hazard, but it's a problem out there.
But if it gets brittle, it can arc. But if it doesn't, but it should have RCDs.
It should have
Yeah.
RCDs, yes.
Yeah.
And there may be something fire, cracks, what I don't know, something like that. But basically it's primarily a shock hazard. It's a problem. But, we're doing our best, but it's out there. Samsung washing machines. So this is the one where it was first raised to our attention by yourselves. Okay, look, here's like the third, either the second or third one, I think you said. Sixth one, was it? Did you get to sixth? I don't know, got to sixth. So it was actually handed to me by my colleague who just went away on holiday, said, this is yours, so that's why I got it. So, and then we talked to Samsung. We're a little bit disappointed at the beginning because they knew they had a couple, they should have proactively come to us, okay? They voluntarily conducted a recall. After a year or so, a couple of years, our minister wasn't happy enough. I want some rails. He served them with a mandatory recall, okay? They did rectification. They cocked it up. They recalled the rectification. All right, and we told them in our very first meeting, if you mess it up, because it's precedent, you're going to redo it. And guess what? They redo it, and it's redoing it again. So they've surpassed, I'm sure, $100 million quite some time ago, but it's not the Australian fault. It's the fault of the people who supply them, their mother company. But the fact is, they're up to about 90%. 90%. I've never seen a recall that high, 144,000 units. But the fact is that they're continuing to have incidents Australia-wide. So as the number goes right down, in fact they're reaching close to the end of life, 6 years, whatever, 7, 8 years, people are starting to throw them out, but the number of fires is actually remaining consistent, and it's a real problem. So we've got a meeting again coming up with Samsung to try and rectify this. It's unknown how we could have prevented this. It's unknown how Samsung could have prevented this. They could have prevented it by better design, but I don't know how as regulators we could prevent it. It's a reactive approach, unfortunately. We could do more Samsung. Yes?
Yeah, that causes moisture, isn't it, around the terminal on the switch?
Yeah, so exactly right. So how I understand that they manufacture it, they're similar. They get the motor manufactured over here, and also it's got the wiring loom, and they manufacture the rest of it over here. So in the factory, they connect the wiring loom for the motor to the rest of it, and they hang it up there in the control area. And so as the moisture comes up, and the change drips down onto this 240 volt connector, doesn't happen straight away, it happens over a while, there's corrosion, there's arcing, sparking, and that little connector catches fire.
What was the solution? Put a bag over it?
Now, you might think that's crazy,
That's what they did.
but the problem is not the bag. The problem is why they didn't do it in the first place. You know what? All the other competitors, you know what they did to solve the problem? They put a bag over it and they wrap it up and it's done. The problem is not the bag. The problem is why it wasn't done in the factory.
And then the reason why they're catching fire again is because the issue had already occurred and they were just bagging up their issue.
Correct. And so, like I say, I can hand on heart warn them of that exact same fact at the beginning, and they say yeah, and they trusted the service techs, right? So they tried to conduct the recall well, but the fact is they didn't have good quality control of their recall of their technicians. They're service techs, they're great. They go out and the motor doesn't work, change the motor, but they weren't safety technicians. They didn't do it right, and they did it again. Yeah, Samsung. Eaton, all the Eaton quick lag RCBOs is industrial, all those black things. You've probably got them in all the commercial centres, universities, stuff like that. They made them wrong.
What year?
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a year?
What year were they?
About 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago, so a new circuit breaker.
Oh, no, these are old circuit. These are good old classic ones.
Oh, those black quick lags.
The black quick lags, yes.
So
Right,
any of those
Well,
in a year or?
yeah, they have been doing it for many years.
Yeah.
And so there is a recall out. It goes on the button colour, you know, the chest button. And so if you're concerned, the greater department can obviously go up.
What's the issue? They're not causing fires, or they're just failing, not working?
It's mostly non-compliance,
Yeah.
but they have caused, I think, 2 fire incidents.
Oh wow.
So the bizarre thing, and I think it's beyond you. The bizarre thing, they were both 2 fire incidents. They were both in McDonald's and both on the same day, different areas. Oh, really?
Is it on the recalls website or not?
That's commercial. So one of the limitations on the recall website, I said to the ACCC, can you put this on the website? They said, no, it's not a consumer product.
There's been about 4 different RCDs recalled in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest, but you had Mac, and then there was an ABB one,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, so that was the start of it.
That's not an RCD.
It's an RCBO.
Oh, is it
It's an
RCD?
RCBO.
That's
That
it.
caused the problems. So it caused the fire, or did it cause the fire by not working?
It activated, and one of the things is, of course, it'll trip, it'll protect the circuit, but in doing that,
Okay.
it'll blast some molten
So then
metal
you
at the back.
fire on the switchboard with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So potentially. So we don't do recalls if the thing is non-compliant, it's offsite. So one of my pet peeves, of course, is we had electric blankets catching fire, and they were dead set going to barbecue someone while they slept. And so I walked into Aldi to make sure that they had the thing on the recall notice up there, and exactly the same prominence, they were recalling a pool noodle that didn't have marking. And you go, well, take that off sale, but this other electric blanket's going to kill someone. Right? And so we only ever do a recall if it's actually proven to be unsafe. And of course, fires is a very good reason why it's unsafe. We can finish off Samsung when I get to the photos. So, GECSA is the Gas and Electricity Consumer Safety Act. So all my powers come from this act. It's a very good act. Gives us powers of entry. We have, I guess, similar powers of entry as you guys. You guys see a smoke or have reasonable belief that there's a problem in there. We can walk in. We can go at any reasonable time and inspect any electrical installation or gas installation in place.
So that's either residential or commercial.
There's limitations on residential, absolutely. And so I think it's coming up.
Oh.
But commercial, we certainly can walk in. And these are obviously extracts. The manufacture or sale, we can walk in. They can't stop us. Okay? And this is another one where a serious electrical accident or serious gas accident, this is one where we can walk into residential. Okay? So the other ones is manufacturing to Woolworths or whatever. We can walk in Woolworths, they can't stop us, it's a breach if they do. We can open up any number of boxes, they can't stop us if we do. This, I guess, is interesting to you guys, so that if you invite us along to a location and you say, you know, you've got your powers of entries, we've got our powers of entries as well. So if you want to invite us along to any incident, you can invite us along. That's why I thought I'd throw it up there. Meaning of serious incident, basically where someone's hurt. I think it's reasonably straightforward. We can follow you guys along with in there. We can prohibit sale. These are all stuff you can look at. That's our powers. Any questions so far?
Glenn, just on the, you had the list of declared items up there previously. What of those items do you see the most of? Is there any particular ones that might more frequently than others, or is it all pretty even?
Power supplies? Is there a problem?
So like your UPSs, things like that, or?
Yeah, they get made cheaply. So in the last 20 years or so, we've only had a single death from an electrical article, and that's pretty good. So lots of deaths from sparkies, lots of deaths from lines workers. From an electrical article, a single death, and that was Cheryl Eldergo back in 2014. And she bought a dodgy USB generic charger down at Kempsey. She plugged it in. Even then, a whole lot of various things had happened. It was on an RCBO, and she died. Okay. So power supplies are very critical because they separate 240 volts from safe voltages. So I'd like to double declare them if I could. Building wire and cable, we still get some issues with them. But other than that, range hoods, a few bits and bobs, is across the board.
What do you get with range hoods?
Oh, they tend to catch fire.
Yeah, why?
Well, mostly because of the things below them catching fire.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They shouldn't be catching fire even if this catches fire.
Oh,
And so if this
okay.
catches fire,
It shouldn't be
there's
going-
something wrong with there. Yeah.
Every range hood I've done, every kitchen fire I've done, the range hood's kept toast.
Yeah. Well, it's It's designed to be safe in all uses.
Yeah. Do you get any forgeries with the like people forging the actual tick?
Yeah. And so we don't get a lot of forging of test reports,
Yeah.
but we do get a lot of people just getting the tick,
Yeah.
chucking it on, selling it.
Yeah.
So, which is another reason why the tick, the RCM, is beginning to mean less and less. It means almost nothing to me. So, it's like I said, the test reports are usually okay, but the product itself is up for anything.
Yeah.
Some industries are completely out of control,
Yeah.
and some of them are new to regulation, like cables,
Yeah.
and some of them are very mature. All right. Now we get into the bits and pieces. So that's not the Samsung washing machine. That's where the Samsung washing machine was. And so that's basically one of the results of it. Yours probably look at that and tell me all about it. So from my point of view, what I want to know is a couple of things. So the photographs for me, when you report to whoever and they come to me, the photographs are important. We've had incidents in the past where we say, oh, it was that, and of course it may not have been that. I know the fireys in Victoria have a history of walking into a place where there's a power board and then walk back out again. So that's what I've been told from my Victorian colleague, and sometimes it's not the power board. So that's a really nice example of Blind Freddy can tell you it's a Samsung washing machine. We also are keen to know that there was still the reason. So the terminal connectors are obviously over here.
Got a pointer on there.
Do you have a pointer?
Red
Where's the?
at the top.
Oh, there you go. Now, obviously Blind Freddy can see that, but in terms of the recall reporting, we still wanted to know it was that. We still wanted to know that the trader had full control over what it was and why it wasn't spread. Because they only recalled 6 models. Why not 7? Why not 36? Okay. So the fact that it's the Samsung washing machine is good. The fact that it was that area is better. But this is the bit we really like. That photograph there, and that's the model number. So that model there, a bit blurry, but that's the shot we like. It pings it down to that model. It's a model approval system. It's not a series approval system. It's not a type approval system. It's not a Samsung recall. It's a model SW80SP recall. And that's the critical part for us. Any questions on Samsungs? How we do our stuff? So, like I said, when we start reacting to this, the model, the information we'd like to see is the model. We also like to have the contact details of the people working for us. So we have to eliminate misuse. Some people out there don't know how to use electrical articles. And it's just, what were you doing to it? Yeah, I had it, in the bath or something really stupid, right? And so, some of these things are literally outside. They're under a bit of cover like this, and you go, well, you use it outside, you can't do it. So we have to eliminate misuse. And that's the end of my main presentation. Any questions so far? A few smiles. How am I going for time?
Good.
I've got a question about lithium batteries.
Yes.
So Samsung also had a recall on lithium phone batteries.
Yes.
What's being done about that?
I was happy to dodge that because, yes. So that was done before we had powers under our act to do it.
Yeah.
It was done by the ACCC. So that was against quality control. It had nothing to do with the certification of the battery or the design of the battery. It was the construction of the battery. To answer your question, yes, it's a good question. So what are we going to do to prevent another Samsung?
Yeah.
We actually so when a regulator decides to regulate an electrical article, whatever it is, we actually need to, and it's a good thing, we need to convince our high level policy people
Yeah.
that for us to impose regulations upon an industry and cause them financial concerns, that it's worth it.
Mm.
Okay. And so we're waiting and watching for any evidence. We're not necessarily watching for incidents.
Yeah.
We're watching for any reason or evidence that we can place additional regulations on any batteries. So there's a two-step process if we wanted to regulate batteries. The first is it's currently at 0. We gazette it once. It comes up to the level where we can needs to be compliant and we can do a recall on it. Currently we can't do a recall. We can gazette it a second time, which means it goes to the level of declared article and need pre-approval.
Yeah.
But each of those we need to have justification.
What about lithium polymer batteries? They're just flat out dangerous in general.
Are they?
Yeah, you can hit them with a hammer and they explode. Like for remote control cars, and then
Yeah.
people put them in remote control cars, crash their remote control cars,
Yeah. And
damage the battery, then get
in the
charge
garage.
it, and then it catches fire.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, how are they even legal?
Yeah. So these are good questions. So my background is I'm an electrical engineer. So I worked in the industry of electrical engineering before I came to fair trading. Been here about 9 years. However, before I came to fair trading, I was a battery engineer, but I was in lead acid batteries.
Yeah.
Lead acid batteries are great.
Yeah.
You can hit them with the fire.
Yeah.
So the lithium and lithium polymer are pretty new.
Yeah.
So if you guys have, if you'll understand how government work, if you guys have specific concerns and specific incidents and specific reasons that we can elevate them,
Yeah.
you know, fair trading's the new minister. He may be up to make a name for himself and prohibit them. It's not a problem.
Mm.
We just need to have the justification. Not necessarily incidents, like I say, justification.
Because, I mean, the other thing is if you just recharge them incorrectly,
Yeah.
you get universal charges, you get different size batteries. You put in the wrong settings and it's going to catch fire. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, so hoverboards was like, that charger doesn't charge that battery. You
Yeah.
do it and it's fine, boom.
And,
It was awful.
and it's so easy to just set up fire as well.
Yeah. So in terms of that, so I sit on the committee, a bunch of different committees, I sit on the committee for battery chargers. And so battery chargers should only give a certain output.
Yeah.
However, there was a deficiency in the standards, so a single fault means they can go to any voltage
Yeah.
and it can kill the batteries, catch fire.
Mm.
So we've changed that, so there's more safe. So if even if there's a fault, it won't overcharge the batteries. But again, we still rely on a trader selling the product with a battery that's got the charge management inside and the correct charger.
Well, apparently they sell them with a fireproof bag. You just charge them in the bag.
Yeah. I don't know who's agreed to that. So, so that's it's not a good solution.
Yeah.
The solution is to make sure that the batteries comply to relevant safety standard, the chargers as well. The one is designed for the other. You don't need a fireproof bag there.
Mm.
You're right. It's not regulation.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
I've been involved in trying to reduce fires in waste recycling facilities, and of course
Right.
batteries is one of the main forces.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any thought of actually having some sort of chip or marker or something on some of the larger batteries that there could be some sort of reader on the trucks as they go in, because they just can't sort a whole truck?
Okay.
Yeah, so some sort of chip or radiation, but when steel's recycled, they can pick up radiation very quickly.
Yeah.
But when they go to those, they can waste compression, compactation,
Yep.
and they get chewed up and shredded, and then they cause more fires. So, is there any thoughts about having some sort of marker?
There is now. So I wasn't aware of that. so obviously we rely on the standards and the regulations and the feedback we get from you guys, right? And so that's useful. So it's not necessarily going to be captured under the standard for batteries as we know it, because it's not necessarily unsafe for the battery itself. However, it is such a good idea because it causes some unsafe situation down the line. So my first question there would be what's happening internationally. So most of the standards we use, we don't want to have Australian standards. There are exceptions for like Powerwalls and AS3000. But most of the stuff we want to see coming down internationally, because we're a pimple on a pumpkin, and if we impose too many local rules, it just doesn't work. So I can do some research and see what they're doing internationally, and that's a good question for
I
the
know
wider department.
overseas they've got much higher levels of doing radiation reading,
Yeah.
because they have much more radiation issues over there.
Yeah, okay.
But it was something that I thought that might be able to actually filter it out of the waste stream, that's what's causing a lot of fires.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good idea, because it wouldn't be particularly onerous for the battery manufacturer to put the chip on there, like the security chip, and as it goes through, it pings it.
Quality control measure.
Yeah.
On their last call.
So yeah, it's that's a good question for the wider department rather than this particular unit, but it's a good idea. So I don't exactly know what committee looks after those batteries. We regulate that the batteries are there, but I mostly do 240 volt sort of committees. It's a good idea.
Any other questions? So I guess summing up from your perspective, you want fire investigators that see these devices to obviously report it to you. I guess one question we get quite a few inquiries from the public. So what happens with the public when they sort of contact us? We haven't attended the fire,
Yep.
but they've got, I've got this thing that caught on fire and stuff like that. What do you want from them? Like,
The best process and procedure I can either pass to yourself or you can disseminate to the group is, so of course, we've got a website and a general phone number. They can actually just give them the phone number
Right.
and say, this is Fair Trading. They're actually electrical and gas safety regulator in New South Wales. And they go through and you call up and say, I've got a fire in my kettle. And it'll raise an incident and it'll come to this unit. And so you guys don't need to worry about that. You don't need to do all your report.
okay.
Pass them on our details and we'll handle it from there.
And is that the same email that they would use?
That's
Or is that just for us?
that's a common email. That's
Yeah.
not a problem.
Yeah.
So that's mostly for you. We'd probably prefer them to go through the website because that's got a more defined process and procedure, and they get disseminated out and it gets triaged out. Okay. So I wouldn't say that's a secret email. That's mostly for you and the people here. Other than that, I can pass out some cards. Which is 133220. I should put that up there. Give that number a call, and you're good to go.
No worries. I guess from RFS, you guys been using fair trading in terms of identifying electrical items out there in your fire investigations, or I mean, do you see much of that stuff, or is it mainly just? Oh yeah, I'm saying, oh yeah, you do a wildfire.
Well, I did one with Fonzarelli motorcycle, tag motorcycle.
Right.
It was charging in the garage, it was a battery fire.
Okay.
I ran Fonzarelli, all the importers of them, they said they didn't have any other fires with them, but like that, they put in. But I don't think the RFS has some protocols with fair trade.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask is what do you do if you do come across it? Or at least I suppose you've got something now if it does happen. Because I know the Samsung was happening outside, well, in your areas. And I was just wondering, did you get much from the Samsungs in terms of in those rural areas, or?
Yeah, well, Samsung will require a report to us, and
Yeah.
so I see it's a scale all around
okay.
this state.
Right.
So I don't know whether it's I can't think I've got much from the regional fire areas, but certainly from Samsung, it does happen everywhere. There we go. Yes.
Any other questions? Excellent. Right, Glenn, well thank you. I've got something here for you. I hope I didn't ask you, but hopefully you do.
Oh, yes, okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming down. And something we haven't done before is actually get someone from a regulation point of view, so that's been great. Thanks for attending. For those on the website, next education night will be in June. Hopefully Mr. Nick will be giving it. It's a case study on the poly-air fires. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Did it record or not? It did.